Well, hello. Today I am going to address being in business and how do we manage our money personally when our only source of income is from our business. So I have seen a lot through the years where clients will come in and they'll say, you know, my business isn't doing well. I don't have the cash flow. I don't know what's going on with the business. And we sit down and then we start going through it all, and it's a profitable business. They then say, well, if there's profit, then how come I don't have cash in the bank? So then we address the issue, and that is they are pulling more out than what the company can handle, cash flow wise. So you have to remember when you're running your business that profit is not cash flow. And there are items that come out of your business that do not reflect on the profit and loss. So things like when you do draw money out personally and it's not through payroll, when you are paying your HST, your payroll source deductions, your corporate tax. So there's a lot of things that you have to really make sure you cash flow manage well. But the biggest problem I can honestly say I see is that the owner is taking more than they should. And it's not because any reason other than they're not budgeting personally to see where they can start being more efficient and economical for, running a business that may not have that lifestyle for them yet. So a few things that I do recommend when you start a business is, one, you always pay yourself right from the beginning before you pay any employee. I see a lot of times where people will hire and then they say, well, I can't take a paycheck, I can't afford it. So my question would be then, why are you in business? You need to make sure you pay yourself first and do the jobs before you hire somebody. It's part of wearing all the hats at the beginning. The second thing is, I would say, is you have to always take a vacation. Now, you may not be able to take maybe a whole week at the first year, but you can certainly take long weekends. You need some downtime, and you need to balance work life with personal life. But for sure, budgeting personally and making sure you're not living above your means, because what happens is over here it's chaos, so you're spending way more money than you need to. So then you're pulling it from the company, which then starts to bring the company down, and you don't get to build capital for opportunities and growth. So it turns into this vicious circle. So you have to make sure you address your personal needs, and you may have to live leaner for a while as you grow your business. But then down the road, remember that old saying from Dave Ramsey, you got to live like no one else so that you can live like no one else. Being on a very tight budget isn't a forever thing. I'm not saying forever you should not be spending money or having your wants met. It is temporary until you develop a behavior where you're working the budget, you're living within your means, you're saving before spending. Now you're going to start to see a shift where all of a sudden you are going to have money to spend on things more than you had at the beginning. Your company will then keep the cash flow for you to be able to do other opportunities and grow your firm, which then you can pull more money. But at the very beginning, you cannot do that. And you have to be very, very strict on your budgeting. To do with debt on the personal side, the one thing you may want to be looking at is how can you eliminate the debt load on the personal side. If you plan on starting a business, what I would highly, highly recommend is making sure personally you're on a very tight budget, and that you are able to live leaner, because your company is going to be an infant for a while. It's going to grow slowly, and not many businesses just boom. And if they do, that's not always a good thing either. So you have to make sure personally is good so that business you can keep cash flow in to grow. So staying out of debt in both areas. Now, if you have to set up debt in the company because it requires certain equipment, or you need to buy a whole bunch of supplies to start, that's fine. But just make sure that what you're projecting of what you're going to make will be able to accommodate the debt repayment plan, because If you then have to go into the personal side to pull from, it's going to start creating a little bit of chaos on the personal budget. So you have to just make sure you do planning on both sides, always planning on both sides. So yeah, there is good debt and bad debt. I think some people don't really understand the difference between the two. So good debt to me is when you have equity. So for a house is good debt because you're building equity every year. You know, your house on average will make you about 4 to 6% a year. So that's good debt to have. Bad debt would be things like that Easy Financial place that charges like 44% because you're desperate to get money. That's a really bad situation. That's a very high interest rate. It's almost like robbery, and it is not good. So you need to look at other avenues if you're struggling before you go to some place like that. But Visa debts, they're bad too. There is no reason that you should have Visa debt. I know the way our world is today, they're making it like it's okay to have Visa debt. But think of who's marketing that. It's the ones making the interest from your debt. Okay, it's not the ones who care about whether you can afford the debt or not. It's the ones making the interest. So you want to always be very cautious of, you know, what kind of debt is okay and what kind of debt stay away from. So credit card debt, going to a high interest place, all those places are bad. Those are areas where you need to save before spending. A house, I mean, to save $500,000 could be challenging, 600, whatever the houses are today. So I would say that is an okay debt to get into. But again, make sure your amortization makes sense. Make sure your monthly payments make sense. You can't, again, have a mortgage payment you can't afford because it's just going to spiral you downhill. So when you own a business, it can be very challenging because now you have two places where you have to cash flow manage and budget. But if you want to be really successful, don't fly by the seat of your pants and just hope everything works out. Put a plan in place on both sides so that you can grow and become very wealthy and manage your business so that you have success and not a failure. Thank you.